Hi, welcome to Reimagine Halal in Asia. Today's segment, we're going to be talking about internationalization opportunities in the Middle East. According to the status of the Global Islamic Economic Report, there's 1.17 trillion spending on halal food segment last year. And we're expecting that 2024 is going to increase to 1.38 trillion. So Have Halal Will Travel is a leading travel and lifestyle platform. We work with a lot of F&B establishments in Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia, and in this region. And we also know that many of them are actually thinking of the big $1 million question. How do we expand effectively and to the right places as well? So today we're actually very privileged to be able to invite Mr. Siraj Salman to come to join us for this session and to be able to share with us his experience. So let's invite Mr. Siraj, the founder of Torch Group.
Hi, Alvin. Good
Hello, hi
morning.
Siraj. Hi, how
Yeah,
are you?
invited. Thank you. I'm good. Safe. Yeah, all good.
Fantastic. That's great to know. So one of the things that many of our readers, I was just going to share earlier just now, is that many of our readers are actually asking, how is the sentiments like in the Middle East? How is it like? Are there any trends in the F&B that we should be aware of, or do you have anything that you can share with us?
Okay, so I think the Middle East is always has a lot of misconceptions about it. Either we are fed from the media, things about it that might not be very accurate. So that's the problem about Middle East. People do not understand them very well. But I would say that the trend in Middle East now, especially the major cities, are one towards modernization, one towards technology, AI. Like for example, Saudi Arabia already has even a minister for artificial intelligence. So that's their vision 2030. And obviously everyone is quite updated about the progress of the United Arab Emirates, especially Dubai, where over the last 30 years, from just a piece of desert, it became one of the most cosmopolitan cities in the world. So yes, in fact, if you look at it, it's a race between the countries to go towards modernization. And when you go towards modernization, you want to um, you want to get to know more international brands. You want to try more international cuisines, and that's the direction where the F&B is going now in the Middle East.
Oh, that's fantastic to know. So I believe that you have something lined up very exciting for us in terms of sharing your knowledge, your experience with the UAE. And we also understand you've been doing mission trips, business mission trips as well into the UAE. So a lot of us are
Correct.
actually looking forward to your sharing session. So without further ado, let's welcome Mr. Siraj Salman from the Torch Group. And
Thank you.
yes, hand over to you now.
Thank you, Elvin, and have Halal World Travel. Appreciate this opportunity to share a bit about my experience and a bit of experience on the Middle East market. Today, what I'm going to share is the growth of regional brands in Middle East. Particularly, I'm going to be covering some brands in the ASEAN market. Okay, now, first of all, we must understand the graphical nature of the region. Now, over in ASEAN, where we are, it composed of a landmass in the Indochina area, and then towards southwards, Indonesia, you have thousands of islands. So everyone's connected by sea over here in ASEAN, if you look at it. Over in the Middle East, although there are a few countries that are higher profile, it doesn't mean that they are huge. So this is something that we need to know. Over here, if you look at it, number 7 is United Arab Emirates. As you can see, there is not enough space to even put UAE over here. But it's very popular. But look over here, this huge mess over here, Saudi Arabia. Uh, so that's a key market over there. But again, look at how close it is to Iraq or Yemen on the south. So this is, for example, we need to understand what's our next point of expansion when we set foot in a particular Middle East state, we are not just going to be staying there and do business in that country. We should expand further. And what's our next point of expansion? As you can see, Bahrain, how big it is, it's just probably a small island of the Middle East chunk of land. Then you can also understand the socio-political landscape of that region. As it is, we are always fed with in the media about the Middle East conflicts, and things like that. So yes, it might be some of them are true. It might not be fully accurate, but it's good for us to know where is what. Okay, now do we know what are the brands what are some ASEAN brands in the Middle East that have actually ventured into the Middle East? So we have a few actually. We have Jollibee from Philippines. They have restaurants in UAE, in Saudi Arabia. Now you might think, why? Why? Now you must also understand that the Middle East have a huge amount of foreign workers. Okay, these foreign workers come from a variety of countries: India, Pakistan, Philippines, Bangladesh. These are some of the major countries that provide manpower to the Middle East. Indonesia also, yes. So you don't just cater to the locals, you cater to the foreign workers too. So Jollibee, being a huge Filipino brand, they are there, widely received, uh, Red Philo, it's also an event management company from Singapore. White Rice. Why I covered these two companies, I'll share more about it later. SMRT Corporation. SMRT also, if you look at it, there are a few that are, I would say, government agencies or government linked companies. SME Corp. The first thing that if you bought the trains at Dubai Metro, when I was there, I was like, what's this thing? It's so familiar. It's just so familiar. The fonts. The fonts in Dubai Metro is the same as Singapore MRT stations. So SMRT, I was someone told me, so found out more that they are actually the consultants to set up Dubai Metro. And if you look at how the train stations are being designed, you can see the familiarity with Singapore. Even SCDF, Singapore Civil Defence Force, also offer consultants, trainers for the UAE firefighters. And then we always have our homegrown brands like Charles and Keith, Old Chunky in Singapore, where these companies have ventured over there in the Middle East. In fact, if you ask me, Charles and Keith is known to be an upmarket brand in Singapore, in UAE, where I went to a store previously, and wow, it costs much more than what it was in Singapore. So interesting. Similarly, with their sister brand Pedro, you have also like cafes like JCO, education institutions like ITE from Singapore, who have done vocational courses over there. Even Shangri-La, which is now an ASEAN brand after takeovers. So they are obviously over there. Why I wanted to come back again to White Rice and Red Philo. Now, if you see, the other brands are quite big, in fact, probably huge. But Red Philo and White Rice Consultancy, they are actually Singaporean SMEs. Singaporean SMEs who have ventured into the Middle East market for some time. So they started as an SME, went there. Red Philo especially, they have gotten contracts with to be part of the they're event management companies. So they also, one of the projects is the Dubai Expo, World Expo, which was supposedly held last year, but I mean this year, 2020, but because of COVID, it has actually pushed to next year. So that doesn't mean that only the big boys can play in Middle East. Even the smaller boys, smaller enterprises can actually venture into Middle East. All right. Before I go here, how to excel in Middle East. As it is, the more you do not know about it, the more you have certain misconceptions about it. How to excel in Middle East. Now, the Middle East is slowly opening up. Okay. In fact, it has progressed above expectations in terms towards modernization, towards technology adoption, towards innovation. So over here, when we touch on F&B, I'm going to not touch much about technology, but when you touch about product, people are starting to want a more international product. For example, I want to be seen eating or munching an international product rather than dates, for example. Dates, they are very common in Middle East, but it's a very traditional fruit. It's a very traditional item. So people want to start having different variety. Now, if I go back on that slide, you see that. So that's why companies or brands like Old Chunky, J. Co, Jollibee, they can survive over there because of uh, the it's something different. I'm not eating Arabic food. I'm eating international food. My uh, it shows I'm exposed to the world, for example. All right. Now again, well, people to a certain extent, human nature, superficial. So people they want to give a nice impression of themselves. Now over there, uh, we we must, okay, for example, again there is always this natural perception that we are inferior, or Asians are not exactly as superior as the Middle Easterners. Now, I just give a bit of history so that you understand and don't get angry about this. Now, the Middle East uh, have kingdoms that have conquered parts of the world. So they, by nature, they are conquerors. And if you notice, people from colonial masters, or people from countries that conquer the rest, always have this superiority complex. And countries who have been colonized sometimes have this inferiority complex. Okay, but do not be if at times they show that they seem that they are displeased with you or they are rude to you, do not take into much what you call it, do not take it to heart. Basically, show your resilience. Show your resilience. Show that you know what you are talking about, and you do not need to be cover in fear, or okay, yeah, I can't do this here. Be firm about what you want. Be firm about what you're proposing. Be firm about your goals and expectations of them. With that, they will respect you. They will respect you. They will say, this is not our run of the mill Asian. This is not our worker. This is our potential business partner. All right. Now, obviously, in any kind of scenario, it's always good to have a local partner who can actually assist you in opening up opportunities. Okay, and then I'm just going to be, I think I'm running out of time. I'm just going to be a bit concise. Uh, International exposure, obviously, businesses who are more exposed internationally are very welcome in the Middle East. But not to say that, I would say that you need to um, show that you understand or you have spent time studying their market. All right, then you understand what is happening. Why do we need to do this? Why do we need to do that? What is the legal compliance? Because it's not a country where people will take the time to solely tutor you, make you understand, go through a few times. No, they expect you not to be spoon fed, so to learn, do it fast, and things like that. Especially when they know you're from Singapore, because they have high regard for Singaporeans. That's for sure. They want you to actually live up to your name and do things faster than any one of them. Okay, the next thing, Arabian direct sales. Okay, now over here, what I mean by Arabian direct sales is uh, to try your best to cut the amount of middlemen. Now, because if you have a few middlemen, then you won't have full control of how your products are being distributed. You don't have full control about how you can dictate terms, and it might be just a short stint for you. You probably will not be able to venture further than a particular area. Okay, yeah, so I think that wraps up my slides, my sharing. Thank you so much. And is there any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Suresh. That's a very, very insightful, sharing of the terrains of how it's like in the Middle East as well. So, yeah, I just got a few things that I was thinking about as well because, in Halal we travel, we work with a lot of F&B establishments, and they always talk about going to Middle East. But when they say about going to Middle East, they start getting stuck. It's like, there are so many countries like you share with us. There's Bahrain, there's obviously Iraq, Kuwait, UAE, Saudi Arabia. So, which countries or cities will you actually recommend for somebody who's new to this terrain to consider so that they can actually create a higher probability of success when they expand to the Middle East?
All right, good question, Alvin. So I would encourage them to go into UAE first. Now, why UAE? First of all, the United Arab Emirates, it's quite similar to Singapore or places like Malaysia, the region, whereby it's a cosmopolitan country. There are many nationalities over there. They widely receive people from many nationalities. There's a good, thriving Singaporean business community over there also. Now, and then the level of support is there. Uh, so UAE is a good place to start your launch pad into Middle East. Now, but at the same time, like how I show in the map just now, you have noticed that it's probably what 10% of the whole of Middle East. It's not exactly huge landmass, but it's the neighbor is actually Saudi Arabia, and there you can see very clearly probably about 60% or 50% of the Middle East is in Saudi Arabia. Next big chunk is probably in Iran. So it's to ease your what you call it, your entry into Saudi Arabia. Huge market, huge landmass, and there's also what you say about this Middle East. They have a growing population. So you talk about workforce, you talk about your consumer market. There are people over there. So yeah, UAE is a key market to enter. Now, at the same time, if you're adventurous, now I'm talking about safe, secure, adventurous by all means. I know of some friends who do business in Iran. They rave about Iran. Iran has got a huge now. One thing about Iran is got a huge population, probably about 70 over million. Comparing to Saudi Arabia's 30 odd, 35. So 70 million, most middle income, so they can afford a few consumer goods. Probably sometimes, you just got to find out more about the compliance over there. So there are times where I've heard your funds got to channel to UAE and then it goes out from UAE. So that one you need to find out more. But it's still a potential. Like for example, China actually does a lot of businesses in Iraq. Would you have done that? I'm not sure, because we are more absorbed in what the news is telling us. Like, tell your mother you want to go Iraq. I don't think you should. So, yeah. But if you ask me again, summarizing, UAE is one of the key markets.
That's fantastic to know. So I just got one last bit of questions to ask, which I think a lot of F&B owners would be very interested to know as well. So for them to actually to set up, a proper maybe a F&B establishment or outlet in the Middle East, what is the rough kind of capital outlay or cost they should be looking at to set up one? And what's the timeline? Does it take them a very long time before they can start operating, or is it something really fast in the Middle East?
Okay, good. Now it depends on a few. It depends on a few things. So, for example, if you want to, I just take two major things. One is probably to set up a restaurant, and another one to set up to send a product in. Now, if you are talking about even sending in or you starting a restaurant, you can actually use the franchise concept. So obviously, certain things are cheaper than the rest. Franchising, obviously, lesser cost than setting up your own. But then again, gone are the days where the Arabs just splash their money. Just to clarify, Arabs don't splash money now. Oil is running out. Battery is the way to go. I mean, don't you think so? That's why. That's why the kingdoms are actually looking into tech, looking to opening up their economies. Why would they do that? Because oil is not a renewable source. You see, it will run out. Now, so the Arabs, they have good, one thing they are good at, they're not the smartest, but they will get the smartest to work for them. All right, they're not the smartest, but they get the smartest to work for them. So when you talk, I'm going to meet an Arab guy. He is the head of this Arab company. Most likely you won't be meeting an Arab, probably meeting American. You're probably meeting a British, or Russian for that matter, and then you negotiate. So these guys are smart. They know what kind of things they can franchise and what things cannot franchise. But if you talk about costs, give or take, if let's say if you want to set up a restaurant, and then at least the capital expenses, first 3 months of operations, you're talking about less than 12,000. Less than 12,000, I think you should be able to. Again, the concept, what I'm giving the example is a proper dine-in, sit-down concept. But if you talk about grab and go, kiosk, it's definitely lower than that. But one thing you can save up is probably rental and manpower. Right, manpower, especially when you use the foreign workers, are lower, and rental is actually much more affordable than places like Singapore or Hong Kong for that matter, because land is available widely. If you talk about bringing in your product, that's actually not expensive at all. Probably if you have a budget of less than 50,000, less than about 30,000, it's more about your product costs, your product cost, shipping costs, and maybe some listing fees over there. Because what we do, especially, I mean, for us, because we have got some experience in this, we're actually working with a satay production company, ready to eat food, who wants to go there. So it's more towards the listing fees. So because the supermarkets over there work with only distributors, they don't want to work to direct old chunky paste or Nando's paste. No. Well, who's the distributor that's going to bring all these things? We work with these few distributors. So these distributors are the key guys. They will know the guy from Carrefour, Lulu's, and all these small markets. So they will also understand. They want to understand where your product, like how I mentioned, do not be afraid. If your product is over here is of uh, mass market, do not be afraid to put that as premium in Middle East. Maybe change a bit of packaging, maybe change a bit of here and there, make it to premium over there. That will actually bring your capital outlay lower lah. Yeah.
That's fantastic to know. So thank you very much, Suraj, for your sharing. Actually,
No problem.
I think from your sharing this time around, we actually had a few good takeaways.
Sure,
Firstly,
sure.
the brands that you were talking about, including things like J. Co, Jollibee, the international brands. It's very, very heartening to know that we actually have Old Chang Kee, Charles and Keith, local brands, especially Old Chang Kee, which is a local F&B establishment that has
Yes,
already actually made their mark in the Middle East. I think that's such an inspiration for so many of our local F&Bs, in this region, to be able to
yes.
consider it as a real possibility to move to the Middle East.
Correct,
Yeah.
correct.
So
I
another
do
thing,
encourage,
actually,
yeah, like
yes.
even your traditional food, you can actually try to bring it over. So,
Absolutely. And that's the other thing I was thinking of, because you were sharing with us that we can go all the way to open the first restaurant, or we can actually find, ready meals or something like that, where we can actually do distribution. So there are actually different ways for you to move according to your budget and how you want to
correct.
move into this Middle East area as well. So the different strategies actually allow the company to decide, maybe they want to take a small step first before they open a full-fledged restaurant. There are many options that you can do, and this is all about exploring and being open to trying it out. So that's another very insightful thing that you shared over here also. So the third thing that we actually realized as well is that, this part about the Sharia law that we all of us are always very fearful about, because we're so unfamiliar as the local, the bureaucracy, the regulations, the need for a local partner sometimes does help in, navigating these kind of situations. Especially, we also hear from you that, it's a lot about the relationship building. It's about who you know, and sometimes, how they can actually bring you to clear many hurdles that you would not be able to solve as a foreigner. Maybe you could spend a lot more time, but with a local partner, you probably can take 1/10 of the time or even lesser to
Correct.
solve that issue as well. So I think that's a very, very fantastic sharing that we actually took away from this very, very precious 20 minutes or so session with you as well. So
Great, great.
well, I think we've come to the end of this session, but once again, we just want to thank Mr. Siraj again from the Touch Group, the founder of Touch Group, to share with us his very invaluable insights into how to expand the Middle East. And for our Have Halal or Travel, or even any other viewers who are present here, if you're thinking of going to the Middle East, we warmly welcome you to speak to any of us from HHWT, or to speak to Mr. Siraj from the Touch Group, and we'll always be happy to work together with you in the expansion into the Middle East. So with that, let me close the session, and I wish all of you a great day ahead. Thank you.